When people think about futuristic cars, they usually imagine machines from the 1950s, the space age, or maybe something from the 1980s. But every once in a while, you discover a vehicle that seems to have arrived decades too early. One of those rare examples is the remarkable Martin Aerodynamic, a strange and ambitious automobile built in 1928 by the Glenn L. Martin Company. At first glance, the car almost looks like a small train carriage placed on wheels. The body is smooth and rounded, the wheels at the rear are completely covered, and the nose slopes downward as if it is trying to cut through the air. And that was exactly the idea. In the late 1920s, aerodynamics in automotive design was still almost unheard of. Most cars looked like tall boxes on wheels. But engineers at the Martin Aircraft Company were used to thinking about airflow, drag, and streamlining because they built airplanes. Naturally, when they decided to experiment with a car, they approached the project like aircraft designers rather than traditional automotive engineers. The result was the Martin Aerodynamic, a radical attempt to apply aviation thinking to road transportation. The body of the car was built from aluminum and shaped with smooth curves designed to reduce air resistance. The underside of the vehicle had a pontoon-like form, and the rear wheels were completely enclosed by the bodywork to improve airflow. Even today, nearly a century later, the design still looks unusual and, honestly, a little adorable, like a futuristic bubble from an old science fiction magazine.
The project reportedly began with an ambitious goal: to create a comfortable four-seat automobile that could travel faster and more efficiently than conventional cars of the time. The car was developed with inspiration from aerodynamic theories popular in aviation, particularly those that emphasized a tapered body shape to allow air to flow smoothly around the vehicle. And although it may look slightly quirky today, for 1928 the design was astonishingly forward-thinking. Under the body, the Martin Aerodynamic used a layout that was extremely unusual for the era. Instead of placing the engine in the front, like most cars of the time, the engineers installed it in the rear. The vehicle used a water-cooled Continental four-cylinder engine positioned behind the passenger compartment. This rear engine configuration helped improve weight distribution and allowed the body to maintain its smooth aerodynamic shape at the front. The engine was connected to a 3-speed transmission, sending power to the rear wheels. Rear-engine cars are common today in certain sports cars, but in 1928, this concept was incredibly rare. Most automobile manufacturers would not experiment seriously with rear-engine designs until decades later. So in many ways, the Martin Aerodynamic was exploring ideas that were far ahead of its time. Performance figures were impressive as well. Thanks to its streamlined body and relatively light construction, the car was reportedly capable of reaching speeds of up to 107 miles per hour, a remarkable figure for a four-cylinder automobile of the late 1920s. To put that into perspective, many typical passenger cars of that period struggled to exceed 50 or 60 miles per hour, so a machine capable of more than 100 miles per hour was essentially operating in what we might call supercar territory for its era. Not bad for a car that looks like a cross between an airplane fuselage and a stylish loaf of bread.
Another fascinating element of the Martin Aerodynamic was its suspension system. Instead of using conventional automotive leaf springs, the designers experimented with an aircraft-inspired suspension system that did not rely on traditional springs at all. This aviation-style approach reflected the background of the engineers who created the car. When you build airplanes for a living, apparently your first instinct when designing a car is to say something like, "What if we just use airplane technology and hope for the best?" Surprisingly, it worked reasonably well.
The steering system itself remained fairly conventional. The front wheels handled steering through a standard linkage system connected to the steering wheel, allowing the car to turn much like other automobiles of the era. However, because the engine was located in the rear and the body shape was so unusual, the overall driving feel was probably very different from most cars of the 1920s. With a long, smooth body and a rear-mounted powertrain, the vehicle likely had handling characteristics that felt quite futuristic compared to its boxy contemporaries. The body design also included some very interesting practical features. The aluminum body had only a single door, which opened into the rear seating area. Yes, just one door. If that sounds inconvenient, you are probably not wrong. But this unusual choice was partly due to the aerodynamic shape of the body, which made conventional door placement difficult. It also added a certain dramatic flair. Passengers would enter through the back, almost like stepping into a small lounge rather than a traditional car. Inside, the cabin was designed to seat 4 people comfortably. Compared with typical vehicles of the late 1920s, which often had very upright seating positions and minimal comfort features, the Martin Aerodynamic was surprisingly spacious and refined. The designers clearly imagined it as a kind of futuristic commuter vehicle, something efficient, comfortable, and capable of traveling long distances at higher speeds. The car was eventually shown to the public at the 1932 National Automobile Show in New York, where it attracted attention for its unusual design. Unfortunately, timing was not on its side. The early 1930s were the depths of the Great Depression, and the automotive industry was struggling just to survive. A complex, experimental car from an aircraft company was probably not what buyers were looking for at the time. As a result, the Martin Aerodynamic never entered production. Only a few prototypes were built, and today the car remains one of the rarest and most unusual vehicles of its era. It stands as a fascinating reminder of how bold and imaginative engineers can be when they are willing to challenge conventional thinking. Looking at the Martin Aerodynamic today, it is easy to smile at its unusual proportions and slightly quirky appearance. But beneath that charming design lies an important piece of automotive history. This car explored ideas like streamlining, rear engine layouts, and integrated body design that would later become central to many automotive innovations. In other words, while the Martin Aerodynamic may look a little strange, it was actually a glimpse of the future. And if you ever see one in person, you might find yourself thinking the same thing many people probably thought back in 1928. That's either the future of automobiles or someone accidentally built a car out of an airplane. And honestly, it might be a little bit of both. If you enjoy discovering rare, unusual, and sometimes slightly crazy vehicles like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There are many more fascinating automotive stories ahead, and some of them are even stranger than this incredible machine.